how would I learn game development if I had to start from scratch? So I've been making games for around 8 years, and if I suddenly forgot everything I know, how would I start all over again? So on my journey, I made many mistakes, but I also did many things really well. So let's go through all of the things I would keep and the things I would change. So let's start off with 3 things I did really well while I was learning how to make games. So first of all, I learned how to code while I was making games, or actually the other way around. I learned how to make games while I was learning coding. Now for me this is really good, because I like to make games with lots of systems and very kind of programming heavy stuff, like procedural generation and complex inventory and upgrade systems and such. And being able to program well and making clean code using programming patterns that can be applied to those systems makes it really a lot more easier and smoother to develop games with complex systems. Now if you're making different kinds of games, this might not be very relevant to you, but you kind of have to think about what kinds of games you want to make. The second thing I did really well is I used tutorials at the beginning to learn the basics, but once you get comfortable with the basics, and even before you are quite that comfortable with them, you kind of want to start making games yourself and just using the tutorials for like little guidance whenever you get stuck. If you rely too much on tutorials, you will get stuck in a place called tutorial hell, which is basically you're able to make games when you follow tutorials, but when you don't have a tutorial for the exact thing, you suddenly don't know what to do and you get stuck and lost. And that's not the place where you want to go. The third thing I did really well is I experimented a lot. Now, there's a balance there. If you experiment too much and you just keep making new projects and new ideas and you never finish them, well, you won't have much to show for it, and also you never really learn how to finish projects and how to work through the middle of them. You only learn kind of how to start new things and how to work on small code bases. And once the projects get bigger, there are lots of things you have to learn at that point as well. Things like organization and structure and proper architecture of the games. Fourth bonus thing I had fun on the way, and this is really important actually. You want to have fun when you make games, and you want to enjoy the process, and I sure did. I really enjoyed building systems and seeing my games come to life. If you're having fun while you make games, you'll stick with it longer, and then you'll actually get good at it. If you don't have fun, then you will eventually quit, and then you won't become a game developer, I guess. Now the 3 things I could have done better, and 3 mistakes I made, and mistakes that many others have made as well. First of all, I tried to develop game ideas that were way too big. Now this is a classic idea, and you will see a lot of experienced game developers recommend you to stick with small ideas. The problem with big ideas is that, first of all, you don't really know how to estimate how big the game is gonna be and how long it will actually take you. And it will always take longer than you anticipate. And if you have a big idea that is bigger than what you're like comfortable making, and usually in the beginning all of your ideas are gonna be a little bit too big, then you will usually realize that it's a little bit too big for you, and once the complexity starts rising, development becomes really difficult, and then you usually burn out and don't finish the project. If you instead make smaller games, then you will have the chance to actually finish them, and then you have a chance to make more projects, and then each project can be a little bit better than the last one, and then you can actually improve your game design skills. If you stick with one project for too long, you actually kind of stop practicing game design and you just practice building. So then you actually want to get good at game design, you just get kind of good at building the systems and things, which is useful, but it would actually be a lot better if you were really good at designing games, because then your games would be fun and people actually want to play them. The second thing I would do differently is I would have intentionally practiced more. Now what do I mean by this? Well, if you think about a professional musician or a sports professional athlete, they practice a ton, like thousands of hours of practice, and then they go perform or play at a big game for an hour or so. So there's 1,000 hours of practice for 1 hour of performance. Now, this is kind of what you want to do when you make games as well. You want to practice like designing games and making the games fun for a longer time before you actually try to make something that you want to sell to people or actually have people play. The third kind of mistake I did is a bit of one that you might not expect. My games had too much innovation. Now, why is this a problem? If you make a game and you add 1 or 2 unique elements to your game, but you still have the structure of a proven game in your new game, then it's easy to design the elements so that they support the already proven structure. Now, if you make a game with 5 different new elements and maybe it combines 2 different genres or 3 different genres, now it's really hard to make the design decisions based on anything. So, for example, if you're making a game that is kind of a roguelike, kind of a crafting adventure game, now say you're designing on what kind of levels your game will have. Now, will you have a open world adventure resource collection game style levels, or will you have tight room-based roguelike levels? You don't really have any good tools to make the decision on because your game doesn't really have that strong of an identity. Now, you can still take elements from both games, but you want to keep the focus of your game very clear. This way, it's really much easier to make the design decisions when you have a clear focus for your game. Now, a fourth bonus mistake that I did, and which I'm still kind of doing, is I haven't still learned sound design. And so my games don't sound that good yet, but that's something I'm planning to fix soon. And when I do, I will also teach you how I did it. How I learned sound design, so you can too. So how would I learn game development if I had to start all over again? So first, I would follow a couple tutorials to learn Unity and learn the basics of game development. How to make stuff move on the screen, how to make stuff even appear on the screen. I would also, secondly, learn programming on the side. Now, you don't necessarily have to specifically learn programming, you can kind of learn the things you need while you're making games, but this depends a lot on what kind of games you want to make. If you want to make games with complex systems and complex interactions and stuff, then you maybe have to learn programming as well, otherwise it's gonna be really difficult to just learn making games and still have complex systems that require a lot of programming. So you have to choose for yourself based on what kinds of games you want to make. Then, once I'm done with the couple basic tutorials, know how things work, I would do 2 or 3 remakes of classic old games. Games like Space Invaders, Asteroids, Metroid. Games that have simple mechanics and games that don't have too complex of a visual style. This way it's easy to see what's going on and you can implement all of the things in the games relatively easily, and you won't be too intimidated by the games. Here I would also reduce the amount of tutorials and handholding I'm using at each step. You kind of want to gain independence at this point as well. You can use tutorials, and you should use tutorials and resources and guides and documentation, but you don't want to follow anything step by step. You want to use the learning resources for when you need them and not all the time for everything. This way you can soon make your own games. Once you're done with those remakes, I would make 2 remakes of more modern games and games that are similar to the games I want to make. These could be remake of, for example, Factorio if I like making resource construction factory type games, or I could make a remake of Nuclear Throne or Enter the Gungeon perhaps. And here I would try to think about what is the core fun of the game and try to implement that fun aspect to your remake as closely as possible. So for Nuclear Throne, I would try to make the controls really snappy and make the shooting and the combat really juicy, so that you can really feel the oomph of the weapons that is signature of Nuclear Throne. This way, you will also absorb the fun aspects of those games into your own style of making games, and your games will be so much better for it. Now, you don't have to follow the graphics and the visual style too closely. I would make them kind of similar style, but you can just kind of make them how you would make them if it was your game. And I would also make custom characters. If you have a game project you want to make, you could kind of make your game characters from that game in the style of the game you're remaking. Also, keep the game small. Like if you're making Nuclear Throne, just make one level, 1 or 2 weapons, max 3 enemies, and no progression mechanics or anything, unless it's actually like really the core of the game. If you're making like a Factorio style game, just make the first 5 or 10 minutes of the game. Make it so that you can build structures, mine resources, and maybe have basic conveyor belts with just 1 or 2 crafting stations in there. Now that you're done with all of that, done with the remaking of games, now you can start making your own game, or that's what I would do at least. Now, I would keep in mind to keep the scope really small and keep the idea really simple. Find some game you like, kind of what you want to make, and add one new twist or idea to it. Maybe change the theme, and then maybe one different mechanic, but make sure it really supports the style of game you are making. Secondly, playtest early. Now, I would make one level. Don't make the first level first. The tutorial level should be saved later, but make one level from the early to mid game of the game. Then make the main mechanic of the game. If it's like a shooting game, then make the shooting work and feel good. Make 1 to 3 enemies, just one level, no progression mechanics, no nothing. Don't even need to be able to change the level. Once that's done, have other people playtest your game. Now this is very important. You want to get into the habit of playtesting early, and you want to get into the habit of playtesting often. After the first playtest, you should still keep playtesting at least once a month or a couple of weeks even. Of course, this also depends on how fast you are developing the game. If you don't have anyone to playtest your game, you can join my community down below in the description. If you post your game there, I will personally playtest your game, give you encouragement and feedback, so you should really check it out if you want to get serious about game development. And finally, actually release your game. If your game is kind of simple and it's not that serious that you want to make money off of it, I would publish it for free on itch.io. And if your game is kind of more polished and you either want to make money from it or don't mind spending the little money for the fees for the platforms, I would either publish it on Steam for PC games or on Google Play for mobile games. Steam games cost you €100 for each new Steam page you make, and Google Play costs you like €25 for the developer account if I recall, but publishing new games on Google Play is free. So this is how I would learn game development if I had to start from scratch. If you're starting on your journey or a little bit further along, join my community down below. There you can get accountability, feedback, and just talk about game dev stuff with other like-minded people. It's a lot easier when you're not alone. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel, and you should be able to see some newest video I've made somewhere around here.